5 months ago, before the season began, I talked about the Sacramento Kings and all of their additions and how I think that they're going to be just a fun young team that could end up ending their playoff drought, right? I mean, the title in itself, don't sleep on the Kings. Don't sleep on the Sacramento Kings finally ending the 16-year playoff drought. And it is really looking that way. I mean, Sacramento is a really good, fun team. Like, I really recommend going and looking back and checking out that video. I'll even link that video down in the description below. Like, a lot of what I said they would be this year, they are. And it's just, they're just a lot of fun. Now, are they winning the championship or anything like that? No, they're not winning it this year. But this is a team to watch out for, not only this year, but going forward. Like, this is a team, I wouldn't be surprised at the right matchup. They win the series, right? Like, I think that they could maybe beat like a Mavericks team who don't really have guys that, like, I think they match up well against like the Mavericks. I think they match up well against like the Blazers if they were to play them in a series. Like teams like that. I just think I think their lack of experience, if they are to get to the playoffs, is gonna be an issue for them. But still, like, if you're a Sacramento Kings fan, you have a lot to be excited for, not just this year, but going forward. Now, me personally, I'm not a Sacramento Kings fan. I'm a Laker fan, right? Many of you know As It Stands Lakers. And then this channel, this is where I get to open up and talk about other teams and other sports and stuff like that. And the Sacramento Kings were just a team that in the offseason, I watched all their moves and I was like, they kind of filled every hole and every issue that they had. Fox and Sabonis were a great duo. I mean, seriously, Fox and Sabonis were a great duo last year in limited time played together. And then this year, you imagine, like, okay, they're going to come back and they're going to put this thing together again. And they did. They really have so far. I really believe that they make the playoffs, or at least the play-in, right? They're good enough to, even if they go on a little skid or something, they'll be a top 10 team. They're a top 10 team in the Western Conference. And then, if they get in the play-in, hopefully they stay in like the, 7 to 8 range, because if they stay in the 7 to 8 range, then that means they only have to win one game and they're in the playoffs. And I would like to see, I really enjoy this team. Like, this team, if you watch this team, if you haven't watched this team, you got to go watch it. Sabonis is having like perfect monster games, right? Fox is kind of developed into a closer. Like, I wasn't very high on Fox for a long time. I really wasn't. Like, and I'm still not like super high on him. I still am kind of questionable about him being the best player on a championship contender. Like, I think he's more of like a better second option. Like, he's your second best player on a championship contender. But that's just me personally. But from what I've seen this year as opposed to previous years, he seems more controlled and he seems more confident. And especially when it gets in games and it gets like the crunch time, like he seems more demanding is probably a good way to put it. And I really like what I've seen from him. I mean, even in the last win against the Jazz, right? Like, that game was a back and forth game. Kevin Huerter hit a huge shot and was just a great fun game to watch. Two very good young teams. But regardless, like, De'Aaron Fox, he was taking the challenge. He was putting the team in and trying to go and make stuff happen. And he was, right? Like, he was putting out just solid production down the stretch, hitting big shots, taking on big tasks. Like, and that's what you want to see, swipe or no swipey, right? Like, the guy is really kind of coming into his own, which I really enjoy seeing from him. And then, like I said, Sabonis just gives you such a nice low post threat, passing threat, a guy that you can run your offense through, and that really makes things easier as well, right? Like, it's nice to have that comfort of like, okay, let me just dump it down to Sabonis and let him go to work, let him go make a play, right? And then you have Fox as the slasher and cutter, and his 3-point shot is coming around better. I mean, he's still not great or elite, but he's knocking it down with a little more confidence this year. And so you really have these two surrounded by solid role players, and these guys are still very young. I mean, De'Aaron Fox is what? He's 25. So that is that. I mean, you have him for the next several years at least, and then on top of that, you have Sabonis, who he's 26, right? So you have your two main guys who are still in not even reaching their prime and are only going to improve and only going to get better. And you have the foundation around these guys to really kind of lead the charge in the coming years. Again, I'm not big on them this year. I really don't. I wouldn't be shocked if they made a little noise, and surprise somebody, but I don't think they're really gonna do much this year personally. But I do think that they have a lot of really good young talent. I mean, De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, obviously, but then you have Murray, right? You have Herter. Malik Monk, I thought, was a nice, solid pickup as a guy off the bench. We'll see what they do with Harrison Barnes. Are they going to keep him? Are they going to let him go? Maybe go try to get another Wayne. This is a team that has some very nice pieces. And I think that this is a team that going forward is only going to improve and get better, right? I hope Sacramento does the right, smart thing and builds and keeps this team going forward, right? If you want to make a minor tweak here and there, okay, fine. But we've seen Sacramento have nice pieces and nice players and start building and looking like, okay, they're heading in the right direction. And then they just will blow it up and trade guys. And you're like, what? Why? Why did you just do that, right? Let this team marinate a little bit. And I hope that they've sort of learned from their past mistakes and give themselves a real opportunity to come in and allow these players to build and grow and evolve, right? Again, none of these guys are in their prime, right? Except for Harrison Barnes, but the core guys are all still very young. Kevin Huerter is still very young, right? Malik Monk is still very young. Keegan Murray is very young. Right. So these guys are not, it's not like all these guys are in their 30s to where it's okay, well, your core, your main guys, your main 4 or 5 guys are all 24 to 26. Right. So this is a team that you could have really grow over the next several years. And as these older teams, the Warriors, the Suns, teams like that, as even the Lakers, not that the Lakers are in contention or anything like that, but they are an older team. Right. And so when you see these older teams start fading out, as all older teams naturally do, they could be one of those young teams that are in the hunt and in the argument, right? They could be there with the Grizzlies and the Pelicans, teams like that. I could see them really making strides as the years go on. Making the playoffs this year, I think, would be huge for them and really kind of put them in a position to gain that experience, to try to go make a run. But even if you fall short, it's not panic mode, right? Let's say you get swept in the first round. Who cares? Right? You got a good young team. You just made it to the playoffs for the first time, right? You just gave these guys some experience that they could grow and build on. Everybody is young. Let them build. Right? Let them build. Now, personally, I think this is a first, maybe, depending on, again, on the matchup. I do think they match up well against some of these teams. And the good thing is, a lot of the teams in the Western Conference are more young teams, right? Grizzlies, the Pelicans, teams like that, they're young. They're teams that they don't have a ton of experience, if any, in the playoffs. So you're not at this major disadvantage. One of the reasons I thought the Warriors were going to win it last year was because of their experience. I was even if they're not the best team, they're a team that knows what it takes to win. And they've learned through trial and error over all the years to okay, we need to consistently be this. And you see a lot of young teams. It was the same thing with Boston, right? You saw Boston, they were killing it. They were looking so good over and over and over again. And then every time it looked like, okay, we're starting to pull ahead. The Warriors just kept being consistent. And then all of a sudden, Boston would get away from what was successful and they ended up falling apart and ended up losing, right? But that's the inexperience. That's the youth of that situation, not understanding okay, we got to stick to the plan here. Right. And so Sacramento's going to get a lot of experience. They're going to get a lot of just time to grow. And I really, really do hope that the Kings organization allows this team to continue to grow, continue to thrive, because they are really fun to watch. Really fun to watch. They are a fun, exciting, young team. And I only imagine that they get better as time goes on. But again, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think of the Sacramento Kings? Do you like them? Do you not? Do you think that they're for real? Do you think that this is a real team? This is a team that could really make some noise this season. Do you think that they're not there yet? They got a couple years, but they do have a nice young core. think that we've seen enough from the Sacramento Kings to know, like, okay, like they're for real in regards to at least being a playoff team. I think this team is definitely a playoff team, and I just think that they're only going to get better. And I'm really excited to kind of see this journey for this young team. Like, in my opinion, they are one of them, and the Grizzlies and the Pelicans are like the three like fun, young, exciting teams. And look at like what the Grizzlies and Pelicans did last season, and like to take that step and that leap this season. I could see the Kings doing the same thing, right? Like they have this season where they're kind of in the middle of the pack, and then take that next step next season, and they're in the upper echelons of the standings. But again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down in the comment section below.